Mom, can we get Nihil on the way home?
No, we have Nihil at home.
Hello everyone and welcome. Today we answer the question, can you beat Elden Ring with only the Spear Call Ritual? So you might be wondering, what even is that? Well, it's the Ash of War for the Death Ritual Spear, and if you have no idea what that weapon is, hey, same! It comes from the Deathrite bird in Mountaintops of the Giants, which I remember killing exactly once after it massacred me about 100 times and I promptly threw the weapon it gave me in the trash out of spite. But regardless, I have now revealed one of the two problems with this run. How do we actually get the weapon? Well, in my Flame Spit only run, a lot of you commented about using zips or wrong warps to get to the mountaintops early, which is cool, or I can just stand here and will it into existence. The second problem is actually being able to use the stupid thing. It requires 14 strength, 20 dexterity, and 18 intelligence. Of the 10 available starting classes, only 2 meet even one of those requirements, and it's Hero and Vagabond with 16 and 14 strength respectively. Fortunately, there are several items we can use to boost our stats, and not so fun fact, Hero, while meeting their strength requirement right out of the gate, is actually the only class that can't use this weapon immediately because of his low intelligence. At any rate, I picked Astrologer because they have the highest int in mind. Now I just have to get the items necessary to use it, and that's pretty easy. So, from Siofra River I get Marika Scarseal, from Limgrave I get the Strength tier, and from Liurnia the Dex tier, and that's it. Okay, let's see how good this thing is. Oh yeah, this is gonna be fun. As is tradition, I give Margit a whirl, and that damage is actually pretty good. So far, the two issues I'm seeing is that this uses kind of a lot of mana, and that enemies react aggressively to it. That being said, it doesn't have so much in-lag that the heat death of the universe is faster, so I'm sure I'll manage. The other immediate issue is the 3-minute time limit. With some good RNG, I know Margit would be doable, but why make life hard when I can make weapons strong? I used some rune items that were laying around and have EG level my weapon to a +4, then head back to Margit to show him my shiny new upgrade. Why does this always happen? This is a multi-hit attack, and yet he still manages to live on 1 HP. Ugh, whatever. First priority is being able to use this weapon without the need for the physic, but using Margit's runes I'm just 1 level short. I could go get some items or farm an enemy, but the next boss is probably the easiest in the game, behind Regal Ancestor Spirit of course. Unsurprisingly, Godrick gets owned. I mean, he isn't a hard boss, but sometimes he takes a little bit of time, you know, because I have to distance myself or carefully pick my attack windows. Not this time. This time, he just dies. And with that, I can now use the Spear Call Ritual freely. Liurnia of the Lakes. Altus Plateau. The reason I came to the Altus now was twofold. 1, for the Ritual Sword Talisman, and 2, so I could spawn Radahn. I mentioned in previous videos that all you have to do is get to Altus, but a couple of you say that that isn't true if you go through the runes, and honestly, you're probably right, but I can guarantee that using the lift does start the Festival of Stars. Speaking of, it is time to take on the strongest demigod. With 12 vigor, and cloth armor, and without a shield. Yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine. In fact, it was not fine. I was going to do Liurnia later because everything for this build is either in or starts in Liurnia, and I felt that would be better for a linear power progression, but I'm not seeing much of a choice. So first I take on this Erdtree avatar for the Magic Shrouding Crack tier, an item that will buff my magic damage by 20%, then I grab the Int Knot tier because this attack does scale with intelligence, so that's just extra damage. Next I make my way to Caria Manor. I started the Loretta fight with negative 99 int because I kept trying to attack between her attacks, which is stupid. I should have just waited for her to cast literally anything. I got a little lucky in that when she phase transitioned, my attack staggered her and I kind of just spammed the attack and won. Alright, Ranni, my princess, I've come to... where is she? Okay, so according to the internet, she's not here because I started the Festival of Stars and hadn't talked to her yet. So in other words, I have to go beat Radahn. Okay game, you want to play like that? I'll play like that. I head to Mount Gelmir and grab the Somberstone 6 and 5, stare longingly at the 7 yet to come, and absolutely eviscerate the Godskin Noble. Then I grab the aforementioned 7, head back to Caelid to get the 8 and 9, and you know what? Just for good measure, I do Vare's quest letting me get the Somber Ancient Dragonstone for a +10 spear. Oh Radahn, I'm back! And this time I've got the juice! 9 times. I hit the L2 button 9 times and I won. And the kicker? One of those casts completely missed because he was too far away. This isn't even my final form. So some of you have asked why I fight Alexander here instead of finishing his questline. Basically, in these kinds of runs, I have to decide if the extra 5% damage increase between the two talismans is worth it, or if I need the boost now. In this case, yeah, I'm good, you can live your life for now, Alexander. Oh good, Ranni's back. Would have been real embarrassing if she wasn't. With her here, I can start Seluvis' questline, and serious question, does anyone even like Seluvis? In this case, he's a means to an end, so I'll tolerate him, but god I hate the guy. He asked me to give a potion to Nepheli, and no. So instead, Gideon and I pour one out for her, and Seluvis is none the wiser. Then I collect 3 regular Starlight Shards and the special glowing yellow one, and he rewards me with the Magic Scorpion Charm, boosting my magic damage by 12%. I also bought the Carry and Filigree crest to reduce the cost of skills, so now let's try our new build out on the Draconic Tree Sentinel. I was able to get him to half health before he even started charging me. Godfrey, surely you'll put up more of a fight, right? Yeah, apparently not. Okay, that isn't completely true. Godfrey does react to the attack being cast and is fast enough to zip out of the way should he do so. Which means I either have to cast early enough in his animation for my attack to go off before he returns to idle, or cast while he's standing right next to me and hope he doesn't zip away. Fortunately, there are plenty of attacks where both opportunities present themselves, which is great information for later. I make a quick pit stop to get Margit Shackle and some Goldfowl feet, and I didn't mean to kill Patches here, but oops. Morgott took 26 seconds to beat. He would have taken less time had I not accidentally tried to use the Shackle after phase 2 started, but like, 26 seconds, and 6 L2 presses, and I'm still not at the max damage I could be doing for this weapon. I mean, it's not going to be going much higher than this, but this is kind of ridiculous. At any rate, I have now arrived in the mountaintops of the Giants, which means I can no longer think of this as a cheated in weapon, as it's obtainable and any fights from here on out are perfectly normal. So first up is the Fire Giant. I originally thought he wouldn't be an issue because of his size, and I mean, he's not, but I started to understand the Spear Call ritual attack a little more in this fight. At first, I had assumed each spear caused damage when it passed through an enemy because, you know, being stabbed with a spear usually hurts, but phase 2 Fire Giant showed me that really isn't the case. What I think actually happens is when the spears hit the ground, they cause little explosions that do damage. Meaning, even though dozens of spears are passing through the Fire Giant, his hands and knees are the only thing touching the ground, so me aiming for his chest is actually doing less damage because most of the spears simply land between his hands. Doesn't stop me from first trying him though. Melina here roasts me so bad for my Fashion Soul, she literally set the world on fire, so I go and pick up the Spellblade set from Ajir. Each piece of this armor will increase the damage of magic Ashivores by 2%, and wouldn't you know it, my magical Death Spears do magic damage. Let me test this out on the Godskin Duo. Yep, that's pretty good. I was actually so surprised by how much damage I was doing, I didn't realize the boss wasn't completely dead and popped the foul foot before it was safe, but it's literally not an issue because this thing does so much damage it's basically Rivers of Blood level of easy. You all knew it was coming, the climactic duel with Alexander the Great Warrior Jar. Finally, a worthy opponent. Our battle will be Oh, he's dead. With the Shard of Alexander, my already outrageous damage is boosted by 15%. I honestly feel bad for the bosses at this point. Malekith is up next. Phase 1, he absolutely didn't stand a chance. The moment he cast his Earth Explosion spell, he might as well have just given up. Phase 2 took a little bit longer, not because of my damage, but because I was trying out weird times to attack him. Like, after he jumps away, you can cast and he'll actually run into a few of the spears. Either way, he goes down on the first try. Gideon Ofnir. I think I've shown enough. Godfrey is literally unchanged from earlier, just have to attack when he's next to me or before he returns to idle. Why am I like this? Seriously though, Rilfree and Hoarah are easy. They both have several animations that are long enough to get a hit in by at least a couple of the falling spears, and of course during phase transition. That's free damage. The Eldin Chad goes down on the second try. I wasn't super worried about Radagon, though I will admit I had a heart attack when I watched him do this. Yep, don't ever want to see him do that again. But ultimately, he isn't that hard. A couple of his attacks have long enough windows to cast, and as long as you're next to him, he will usually go straight into another attack, skipping his idle phase and thus skipping the window where he can parry spells. Elden Beast has the same issues that the Fire Giant had. Because he's always hunched over, a lot of the spears just miss. Gotta get a better gaming chair, my guy. Lumbar support is important. Due to that unfortunate lock-on position, he was slightly more difficult than I anticipated. You know, like a 2 out of 10 on the difficulty scale. Oh, and he moves around a lot. Like, a lot, but anytime he sits still, we can do some serious damage, and before long, we have beaten Elden Ring with only the Spear Call ritual. Well, let's go take on the super bosses. I figured Placidusax would be easy runes, so instead of fighting him now, I wanted to go to the Consecrated Snowfield. Commander Nile was an absolute joke. The only reason I took damage at all in this fight was because I just didn't care. I kept spamming the attack and let his summons hit me because, like, look at that damage. It's ridiculous. I feel like I'm fighting an early game boss with an overpowered weapon, but in reality, I'm fighting a late game boss with an overpowered weapon. Now, a poem. There once was a tarnished with a spear, and when she raised it high into the hearts of many did she strike fear. But one rose to challenge the mighty hero. Loretta, with a powerful sickle, shouted, "I'll reduce your health to 0." Valiantly the two warriors did clash, but Loretta died because she's absolute trash. With that speed bump out of the way, it's time to get to a fun fight. Malenia, Blade of Miquella. Okay, first I gotta test to see if she dodges when I cast. Yes she does. Awesome, love that. Well, if I can't hit her whenever I want, how about I just wait for Old Faithful, this uppercut slash thing. There are other opportunities to attack as long as she's not an idle, but it's kinda risky because she doesn't always super telegraph when her attack chains are over, or even if she does, she might be close enough to start the next chain, but this jump slam is also another easy window. Phase 2 is a joke. Look at this. Look at it. This damage is disgusting. It's great, I love it. I did so much damage during her initial dive bomb that I pushed her into her low health Scarlet Aeonia spam phase and she did the attack almost immediately again. Surprisingly, she lived through the second one, but I'll assume it's because my physics buff wore off, but right after she did the uppercut and died. I counted and she only did 6 attacks in phase 2 before it was over. This weapon feels like it should be illegal. Okay, I'm feeling kinda spicy now, so how about Rykard next? He's a big target, but even though he has 30 quadrillion health, I figured he wouldn't be that bad. For phase 1, it's probably better to just free aim because similar to Elden Beast and the Fire Giant, the lock-on is kinda positioned in a bad spot, that being on his head, which is a few meters in front of his body. Phase 2 though, he keeps his head firmly above his body for the most part, so it isn't an issue, and after 2 whole tries, the Lord of Blasphemy goes down. Mohg, you're usually a pain in my ass, how about this time? Wow, didn't know I was out here fighting the Mimic tier. So yeah, he's not an issue, but in typical me fashion, I choked right before the fight was over. The second attempt goes much better. Honestly, if you use the Shackle, you might be able to avoid phase 2 altogether, but it kinda isn't necessary. Like, this thing does so much damage that when he starts counting down, you can spam the attack and it'll push him all the way to his phase transition. Whatever, that's the easiest 500,000 runes I've ever made. And with him down, I descend into Nokron to fight the actual Mimic tier. Wait, why didn't the cast go off? Oh, it's because they're holding the spear with one hand and don't have enough strength to cast it. How stupid! Wait, that's me. Since I already fought real Mohg, I thought I would go the Gargoyles route to get in the Deeproot depths. I figured since there were 2 of them, it might prove to be somewhat of a challenge, and despite their size, they can even move far enough to dodge the attack, but does that really matter when one well-placed cast takes actually half their health bar? One of these days, I'm gonna make a Baby Easy mode for Elden Ring video, and I have a strong feeling that this weapon's gonna be in it. Fia's champions they are definitely a boss. That is in fact a boss health bar, and they have a backing track. Yep, that's a boss. Oh boy, the part of the game where I go collect a bunch of stuff. Okay, we have cool looking dagger I can't use, silly statue that I just get to look at, and the Stargazer heirloom. Where were you at the beginning of this run? Oh, and also the Curse Mark of Death. Fortissax. Deleted. I got hit once at the end of this fight because, well, honestly, I had complete faith that I was going to win, or perhaps complete intelligence that I was going to win. Placidusax deletes me. Wait, so do y'all remember what I said about how a couple of the big bosses didn't take a lot of damage because they weren't actually touching the ground below where the camera locks on? Yeah, that's not a problem here. Spear Call Ritual isn't as effective as the bubbles or, allegedly, the pest threads, but it's still a ridiculously powerful option. Deep below ground, I almost get absolutely slaughtered by this Hanging Star Beast thing, so of course I have to stop and murder it. And I think this pretty much confirms the hitboxes are on the ground, or at the very least not the actual falling spears. Anyway, on to the real Estelle. I'm glad there's only like 2 bosses left because I've kind of run out of ways to say this weapon is overpowered. Hello, Bambi, will you be a disappointment this time? I don't know why I saved Regal Ancestor Spirit for so late into the run. I thought he had higher magical resistance, but no, just 20%, and unsurprisingly, it did not help him at all. Which means all that's left is the Academy. Red Wolf of Radagon, more like Red Wolf of Get Out of My Way because Rennala is the real star of the show. I'll mark that down as a joke that needs a little bit of work. So Rennala has a whopping 80% magic resistance, but I have a max somber weapon and 97 intelligence. Surely she doesn't stand a chance, right? Okay, so the actual numbers suck, and it looks like it's about 115 per spear, but since she's an early game boss, she doesn't really have that much health to begin with. That and the fact that each cast conjures multiple spears and I have potentially 12 mana refills, and yeah, the fight's not that hard. I always try to save the bosses that have high resistances for the end because they usually end up being a problem. See Mohg for like half of the challenges I've done, but in this case, Renala just lacks the health to be a threat. I almost wish I had done her sooner, but oh well, I thrust my spear at her until she falls, and with that, the challenge is over. Thank you everyone for watching, and an extra special thanks to my patrons. Stay beautiful, y'all. Also, a quick shout out to my wonderful friend Xenofox for lending her vocal talents in the beginning. Show her some love on Twitch, link in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving a like and subscribing. It helps the channel out way more than you know, and until next time, my friends, don't you dare go hollow.